What up, everybody? The heroic dose of psychedelics, according to Johns Hopkins, Dr. Matthew Johnson. Alright, I gotta watch that.
Experiences are often called ineffable, but as a scientist, I do my best to F it up by trying to describe it as much as I can, so I'll go ahead and do that. Our society has been in a mental health crisis, and it's been stagnating. A large portion of people treat it with
That's
traditional
true.
antidepressant.
That's true. And you see it, you definitely see a lot of that mental health crisis stuff with, with people that stream, people on Twitch and shit. Honestly, there's so much mental health on there. Like, you'll see all kinds of people on fucked up mental and stuff. Just being honest.
Don't see benefit.
Really, a shitload of content creators. Honestly, it's gotten to the point where some people think it's fucking cool to like they've made it to where it's like a thing to have like to be autistic or something. Or so I've never seen so many fucking autistic people in my life. And it's definitely not something that you want to have, like, that you want to have to deal with your entire life. Not knowing how to communicate with people and stuff properly, not knowing how to read other people's body language and shit. Like, dude, not knowing social cues. But these are problems that I don't enjoy dealing with. Like, most people that have that actually have that problem have problems making friends, all kinds of stuff. You know, it can be lonely, it can be isolating. Like, it's not something that anybody wants to go through. So, like, people using it for clout, it, people using autism or Asperger's or being on the spectrum for clout, for something to say like, "Hey, look at me," you know. It's gross. It's gross and it's offensive. Just saying.
Psychedelics are the only drug class that I know of where you have not just one or two, but lots of stories of people saying they took this thing one time and they say,
And I say that because I actually have been diagnosed with Asperger's. I've been diagnosed as being on the spectrum. I have been medicated for. I've had like it's been an issue. You know, it's been a problem dealing with it my entire life. You know, so and I don't usually talk about it. I usually don't talk about it, but like sometimes I feel like I have to talk about this situation because it pisses me off the amount of mental health streamers there are out there trying to draw clout from a serious from an actual mental health issue that people actually deal with and actually have problems with and stuff and don't talk about it and don't fucking try to get clout from it and stuff like it's just so fucking gross, dude.
it had this profound impact on the course of their entire life. They really exploded on the scene in the 1960s and were associated with some really radical changes to society that
I do think mushrooms can help with mental health issues, though.
really scared.
And honestly, I think that some of these people that do that, they need to eat some more mushrooms, kill that ego, and just realize they don't need to have clout from people that they don't know in the first place to be happy. Honestly, like all you need is yourself to be happy, and who you are as a person is enough. You know, you don't need to have something that's wrong with you for attention. Just saying, you are enough to love yourself. You know.
Scared a lot of people. I think now society is more ready to kind
I
of
think mushrooms
accept
can teach
these
people that.
compounds and the whole picture of them. I'm Matt Johnson. I'm a professor of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins. I study drugs, principally psychedelics. It's hard to imagine a more interdisciplinary topic in the realm of drugs than psychedelics. They've apparently been used for time immemorial throughout many different cultures on the planet. Kary Mullis won the Nobel Prize inventing PCR, which revolutionized biology. He said he wouldn't have been able to do that had he not had experience in taking psychedelics. You move into the
Right.
arts, and then, who hasn't heard of musicians and other artists claiming that psychedelics had a profound impact on their creativity? There's the Beatles before LSD, and then there's the Beatles after LSD. That's a
Beatles
big
were
shift.
way better after
The
LSD.
initial big wave of that scientific interest for psychedelics was in the 1950s. So this was about a decade after Albert Hofmann had first discovered the psychoactive properties of LSD. There was a group in Maryland called the Spring Grove Group, a lot of early research there, particularly with cancer patients. But I would say one of the most important groups in the history of this work was led by Abram Halfer and Humphrey Osmond in Saskatchewan, Canada. They were really the first group that I would say developed what we now call psychedelic therapy.
Right.
There was this growing appreciation of some of the risks and the safeguards needed to minimize those risks, but not every investigator was aware of this. There was some unethical research, some wild research. There was controversy surrounding Timothy Leary, especially after he was fired from Harvard.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Psychedelics
Right.
became so
Uh,
associated with the counterculture. Society was, in a sense, traumatized. It all came to a halt. I mean, there were researchers that were
that
running
shit became
sessions and
famous.
got the
Didn't
notices they just had
tune
to
on,
stop.
tune in,
The rug is
drop
pulled
out.
out for decades before there's a reinitiation. The research that's happening now, a lot of it is exploring medical applications. These are all drugs that can have a profound effect on one's sense of reality, including one's sense of self. I think kind of the only bet you can make is that if you have the dose high enough, something really interesting is going to happen. You might
Yeah.
find yourself in your mind's eye, soaring in the heavens, the secrets of the universe seemingly revealed to you.
I've been there. Like,
On the other hand, 5 seconds later, it might collapse into what folks call a bad trip, where one could feel like they're gonna die. It's sort of this like massive shakeup in
I've been
one's
there before
experience
too.
of reality. I'm floored when people with really substantial life experience will say things like, this was the most meaningful experience of their life. Compared to the intensity of the subjective effects, it's remarkable how little impact these substances have on physiology. You know, your heart rate, your blood pressure, everything has its risks, to be clear. But compared to other drug classes, psychedelics are really robustly safe at the physiological level.
Yeah.
My therapeutic research with psychedelics has primarily used psilocybin.
Even when you're having a bad trip, you're actually safe. Like, it's all in your head
Which is the
every fucking time.
agent in magic mushrooms.
Like, I remember this one time I had this bad trip and I was walking down the road and I looked over and I saw this tree and the way that it was shaped that looked like the Grim Reaper. And for the rest of the night, I thought that the Grim Reaper was following and shit down the street because I was walking home and it was the middle of the night and it was me and my buddy and we're both tripping and he kept having to remind me like you're just tripping. And there was no Grim Reaper. It was all in my head. But there's also been other times where I've sat on the front porch on acid and watched a bush across the street turn into this giant bush. It grew 10 times bigger than what it actually was, and it looked like it was purple. And the light illuminating down onto it was like a fluorescent purple coming from the street light. And that was a beautiful trip.
The dose we now give to patients is anywhere from 30 milligrams to 40 milligrams, which Terence McKenna, who's the famous psychedelic bard, would refer to repeatedly as the heroic dose. If a microdose is over here and a recreational dose is over here, we're way over here. When someone
Right.
comes in for the day of their psychedelic session, they've already spent several hours with us on previous days preparing for the experience, developing that rapport. We know that all drugs are in part shaped by the context in which they're given, but for the psychedelic substances, that's particularly more so. So
Yeah.
when you provide it in more of a warm, welcoming situation, you tend to get more meaningful reactions to the substance. When the experience unfolds, the person is going to lay down, wear eye shades and headphones through which music is played. The idea is kind of get out of your normal, everyday, discursive, analyzing intellect.
Right.
We really just encourage them to trust, let go, and be open. Trust the overall process. Going into this type of treatment is not easy at all. Trust yourself that you're robust. You're going to get through this experience. Let go. What does let go mean? Let go means whatever your preconceived notions of what this experience might be or what experience you should have, don't let that get in the way for the experience that you will have. Don't try to control it. And be open. No matter where this takes you, go there. Whatever the experience is, take the orientation of this is what I need to deal with.
I would
The range
love
of
to do
experiences are just so broad.
one of
You
those
can swing from a
therapies.
terrifying
I would love to
experience
do
to this
psychoactive therapy.
beatific, sort of like most amazing experience of your life. Some people could feel like they've reached the end of reality, this kind of plane of existence. Others say that they can feel the suffering across the entire planet, sort of having this sort of experience of universal empathy. It's all welcome. The laughter, the tears, everything in between. That's exactly what this process is for. So the integration phase is where we're discussing the experience with them. And the themes that come up are so varied. One of the aspects you could call revealed truth. And I call these duh moments. These are experiences where people will feel like they've learned something at such a fundamental level. I think of examples in our work we've done with cancer patients where oftentimes people will say, I'm allowing this to create my own suffering. The cancer hasn't killed me yet. I can still live life, but I'm letting it do this to me. They knew it up here. They could tell you the words, but now they feel it in their bones. They feel it in their heart.
Right.
People are reminded about this power they have to choose their own destiny. Some people come out of these sessions as participants and say that, 1 6-hour experience with psilocybin is like 1,000 hours of therapy.
Yeah. And I believe that.
But one of the pitfalls of this clinical work is that you'd be hard-pressed to find a more intimate and vulnerable psychological intervention for a person. That's just a situation that is ripe for abuses if we don't have the right safeguards.
Yeah.
Because of that vulnerability, because of that,
People could
the
take
incredible gravity of these sessions.
people could take that kind of stuff that they learn about you and just like, coerce you into shit and stuff like that, or use it to, for all kinds of manipulation and stuff like that, gaslighting. The list is endless. and it is scary as shit being that open and vulnerable to somebody, and so I think that's probably why so many people have a hard time like going to therapy and stuff like that, and making themselves vulnerable and open because of the traumas that some people have been through, where those things uh, have been used against them and stuff in the past. So I could see where that can make people very closed off. But I think what they're doing with uh, hallucinogenic studies and stuff like that, I think it is going to be a game changer for like people with mental health issues.
We need to even more tenaciously cling to clinical boundaries. We need to limit the use of therapeutic touch. A subtler form of abuse is just filling in the blanks for people. I call it the guru complex. People often confront big picture questions. What is the meaning of life? Does God exist? What's the big picture of everything that's going on? What am I? On those
Right?
metaphysical questions, we really have to be silent. In the biggest picture, aside from psychedelics' ability to treat one disorder or another, I think they're just poised to really help us to understand the nature of psychiatric disorders. What commonalities do they have with each other that are somehow being addressed by psychedelic treatment? I kind of think of all of these disorders as different forms of addiction. So whether it's to a substance like tobacco or alcohol, cocaine, or a way of thinking about yourself, it's
Addiction is definitely a mental health disorder. Like no matter what the addiction is, like it definitely takes place in the brain.
this narrowed mental and behavioral repertoire. Reality used to be like this, and now your reality is like this. And psychedelics, when done well in the right setting, had the ability to just blow people out of that narrowed story. It holds a
Right?
lot of promise in helping us figure out what it
I
takes
believe
for the
that.
human being to be mentally healthy.
Get smarter, faster with videos from the world's biggest thinkers.
Get smarter faster. Yeah, I like that. So I believe, honestly, I believe in uh, psychedelics for treating stuff like using psychedelics for treating stuff like mental health issues and things like that. Like it's really important work that they're doing with with that field and and all of that. So apparently,